I came home earlier than usual and overheard my GF talking about how I work hard all day long and she can cheat in peace, so I left without saying a word. Now she's freaking out because she just received this letter in the mail and our joint accounts have been blocked. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy writing one of these stories. I've seen countless posts on Reddit about relationships gone wrong. And while I felt bad for those people, I never imagined I'd end up in the same situation. But here I am. For context, I live with my girlfriend, Hannah, 29 female, and I, 31 male, have been together for 5 years. We've been living together for the past 3 years in a cozy apartment just outside the city. I work in tech sales, which is a demanding job with long hours and constant pressure to meet targets. It's not the easiest career, but the pay is good, and it allowed us to live comfortably and plan for the future. Hannah, on the other hand, works part-time as a freelance graphic designer. Her schedule is flexible, so she spends most of her time at home. When I say I've been planning for the future, I mean I've been working hard to set us up for a solid life together. I've been taking on extra projects at work and pushing myself to climb the ladder so that we could have some financial stability when I eventually popped the question. I even started looking at engagement rings a few months ago. Hannah and I have talked about marriage in the past, and while we both agreed there was no rush, it's something I've been thinking about more and more lately. We've built a life together that I thought was leading to something permanent. I imagined us buying a house in a few years and maybe starting a family or at least a dog to keep her company while I'm at work. Every late night at the office or stressful meeting with a client felt worth it because I was doing it for us, for our future. I'd even started putting away money in a savings account, not just for the ring, but also for a nice honeymoon somewhere tropical. Hannah's work situation has always been different from mine. She has a much more relaxed schedule, working on freelance projects when they come in. It's not consistent, but she enjoys what she does and has always contributed her share to our expenses. For the past year or so, I've been quietly planning how I would propose. I wanted it to be special, something that would reflect how much she meant to me. I thought about recreating our first date or maybe taking her on a surprise trip to Paris since she's always dreamed of visiting the Eiffel Tower. Our setup always seemed to work well. I'd put in the hours at work, and Hannah would manage the home. She was always supportive, or so I thought. She'd tell me how proud she was of my work ethic and how much she appreciated everything I did for us. I believed her. Sure, we had the occasional argument like any couple, but nothing major. Most of our disagreements were about small everyday things like me forgetting to take out the trash or her leaving the bathroom sink a mess. We always worked through it and moved on. But last Tuesday, everything changed. It was a normal day, or so I thought. I left for work early in the morning, expecting another long day of client meetings and calls. Around noon, one of my afternoon meetings got canceled unexpectedly. Instead of killing time at the office, I decided to head home. I thought it would be nice to surprise Hannah. I got back to the apartment around 2 p.m. It was unusually quiet. Normally, Hannah would be in the living room working on her laptop or watching TV, but she wasn't there. I figured she might be in the bedroom taking a nap. As I walked towards the hallway, I heard her voice. She was on the phone in the bedroom. The door was slightly open, and I could hear her clearly. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed she was talking to a client or a friend. But as I got closer, her words started registering and my heart sank. It was something to the effect of, "Yeah, he works so much. Perfect setup. I can totally do whatever I want. He's never home, and he trusts me completely." Her tone wasn't just casual. It was cold and calculating. It wasn't the Hannah I knew. I froze in the hallway trying to make sense of what I was hearing. She was talking about me, about how my long hours made it easy for her to cheat. I didn't barge in. I didn't confront her. I don't know why, but something told me to stay quiet. I stood there for another minute listening to her continue the conversation. And then I made up my mind. I turned around, grabbed my laptop bag from the living room, and walked out of the apartment without making a sound. I didn't go back to work. Instead, I drove straight to my friend, Mike's place. Mike's been my rock through a lot of tough times, and I knew I could count on him to help me think this through. When I got there, I told him everything. He was as shocked as I was. That night, I started making a plan. I didn't want to act impulsively, but I also couldn't stay in that apartment or in this relationship. I realized this wasn't just an emotional betrayal. Hannah and I had a lot of shared responsibilities, joint bank accounts, a lease, and plans for the future. I needed to protect myself, not just emotionally, but also financially. The next morning, I went to the bank. I moved most of the money out of our joint account into my personal account, leaving just enough to cover the next round of bills. I wasn't trying to be petty. I just didn't want Hannah to have unrestricted access to the money I'd been working so hard to save. Then I contacted our landlord. Our lease had another 6 months on it, so I couldn't just walk away without consequences. I explained the situation and asked to have my name removed from the lease. The landlord wasn't thrilled, But he agreed to work with me as long as I provided documentation. I began documenting everything. I checked our joint bank account and took screenshots of all recent transactions. I looked through our shared calendar to see if there were any clues about what she'd been up to. I even downloaded phone logs from my carrier. I didn't know if I'd need this information, but I didn't want to take any chances. The hardest part was informing Hannah about all of this. I couldn't face her, not after what I'd overheard. I knew any conversation would devolve into excuses or denials. I didn't have the energy for that. In the letter, I explained what I'd heard and how it made me feel. I told her I couldn't continue the relationship and that I'd taken steps to separate our finances and living arrangements. I kept it simple and factual. After emailing her the whole thing, I packed my essential belongings and moved into a hotel. It wasn't ideal, but it gave me space to think and figure out my next steps. By the time Hannah received a letter, I'd already started getting texts and calls from her. At first, they were confused, asking me what was going on. Then they turned frantic, claiming I misunderstood and begging me to come home. When I didn't respond, the messages got angry. She accused me of overreacting, of ruining everything over what she claimed was a joke. I didn't engage. I knew what I'd heard, and there was no way to unhear it. This wasn't about a misunderstanding or a joke. It was about the fundamental lack of respect she had for me in our relationship. Over the next few days, the calls and messages intensified. Mutual friends started reaching out, saying Hannah was upset and didn't know why I'd left. I kept my responses vague, not wanting to air our dirty laundry, but it was clear she was spinning a different version of the story to anyone who would listen. The only call that really caught me off guard was from Hannah's mom. She accused me of overreacting and demanded I come back to work things out. I kept it polite but firm, explaining that I wasn't willing to discuss the matter with her. That brings me to today. It's been a few days since she would have received the letter, and I've been getting bombarded with texts and calls from her. I haven't answered any of them. She's freaking out, saying she doesn't know what I'm talking about and that I'm overreacting. I haven't responded because, frankly, I don't believe her. I know what I heard. I've always thought of myself as a logical person, someone who makes decisions based on reason rather than emotion, but this has shaken me to my core. Did I do the right thing by leaving and taking immediate action? Should I have confronted her directly instead of walking away? And if I'm on the right track, what should I do next? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support on my original post. I honestly didn't expect such a huge response, and reading through your comments has helped me feel less alone in this situation. Many of you asked for updates, so here's what's happened in the last few days. To address some common questions from the comments, no. I haven't confronted Hannah directly yet. Many of you advised against it, saying it would only give her a chance to manipulate the situation, and I agree. And for those wondering about the financial side, yes, I consulted with my bank to make sure everything I did was within my rights. The past few days have been a lot. Hannah's reaction to the letter was exactly what many of you predicted. After the initial shock wore off, she started spinning her own version of events. Mutual friends began reaching out to me saying she told them I completely misunderstood a conversation she was having about planning a surprise party for my upcoming birthday. I almost laughed out loud when I heard that. My birthday isn't for another 6 months. At first, I started to question myself. What if I did mishear something? But I quickly pushed that thought aside because deep down, I know what I heard. The tone, the words, none of it was about planning a party. Yesterday, I got the confirmation I didn't even know I needed. My friend, Mike, the guy I've been staying with, told me his wife heard something from Hannah's coworker. Apparently, Hannah has been seeing someone from her old workplace for at least 3 months. According to this coworker, Hannah's been telling people at her previous job that she's single. The coworker didn't even realize we were still together until Mike's wife mentioned it. Hearing this felt like a gut punch, but at the same time, it solidified everything for me. I didn't go looking for this information. It came to me unsolicited. It's one thing to suspect, and it's another to have it confirmed. In the meantime, I've been working on fully detangling my life from Hannah's. Over the weekend, I went back to the apartment while she was out and packed up the rest of my stuff. Mike and his wife helped me load everything into their car. I left behind anything we bought together: furniture, kitchenware, decor. I only took what was undeniably mine: clothes, personal items, and a few sentimental things. I also made a detailed inventory and took photos of everything I left behind just in case there's any dispute later. Who knows, right? The hardest part of packing wasn't the logistics. It was coming across photos of us together, 5 years worth of memories now tainted. I found myself wondering if she was already cheating in some of those moments, if the smiles and laughter in the pictures were genuine or just a facade. It's a terrible feeling to question the reality of your entire relationship. Hannah's latest strategy has been to minimize what happened. She sent me long rambling texts insisting that it was just a conversation and that nothing physical ever happened, even if that were true, which I doubt. The intent was clear in what I overheard. It wasn't the words of someone who respected me or our relationship. Many of you commented that emotional cheating is just as damaging as physical cheating, and I couldn't agree more. I've also started therapy, which was suggested by a lot of you. My therapist has been helping me process everything without letting anger or bitterness consume me. We've been focusing on why the betrayal of trust hurts even more than the idea of her being with someone else. It's not just the act, it's the complete disregard for my time, effort, and faith in her. For those asking about the next steps, I'm taking things one day at a time. I thought about reaching out to a lawyer, not because I expect a legal battle, but just to make sure all my bases are covered. I don't want any surprises down the line. Hannah hasn't stopped trying to contact me. Her messages have ranged from apologetic to defensive to downright accusatory. It's like she's cycling through all the possible tactics to get me to engage. But I've stayed firm. I know what I heard, and I know what I've learned since. There's no going back from this. Thank you to everyone who's offered support, advice, or just shared your own experiences. Knowing I'm not alone in this has made all the difference. I'll keep you updated as things progress, and for now, I'm focusing on myself, my work, and building a life that feels solid and honest. Update to thank you all for the continued support and messages. Your advice and shared experiences have helped me navigate this difficult time more than I can express. I have some significant updates to share with you since my last post because I know it's been a while. To address some common questions, yes, I'm still in therapy, and it's been a game changer for me. The sessions are helping me process everything and focus on myself instead of the chaos Hannah created. No, I haven't broken my no contact rule with her, and I have no intention of doing so. And, yes, following some excellent advice here, I checked my credit report, updated all my passwords, and even set up alerts on my accounts. Thankfully, everything looks clean so far. The biggest news came yesterday when I received a text from Tina, Hannah's best friend. She said she needed to talk to me about something important. At first, I hesitated. A lot of you warned me about trusting people who are still close to Hannah, and, honestly, I wasn't sure what her motives were. Tina and I had always been friendly, but she was Hannah's best friend, and loyalty is a powerful thing. Still, something about her message felt different, urgent, almost. After some thinking, I decided to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. What Tina told me confirmed everything I feared and then some. She started by saying she had been struggling with whether or not to tell me for weeks, then she dropped the bomb. Hannah had been cheating on me for months, maybe even longer. Tina explained that she didn't know about the current guy, but she started noticing changes in Hannah's behavior a while ago. She became more secretive, glued to her phone, and often canceled their Friday meetups. That was strange because their Friday hangouts were practically a tradition. At first, Tina thought maybe Hannah was stressed or overwhelmed with work, so she didn't think much of it. But about 2 months ago, Tina accidentally saw something she couldn't ignore. While they were out together, Hannah left her phone on the table for a moment. A notification popped up, a message from someone clearly not just a friend. Tina didn't mean to pry, but when Hannah saw her looking, she panicked and grabbed the phone, which only made Tina more suspicious. Eventually, Tina confronted her, asking outright if she was seeing someone else. Hannah admitted she'd met someone on a dating app. Tina was shocked, especially because she knew how serious Hannah and I were. She urged Hannah to either end things with me or, at the very least, be honest about what was going on. Hannah's response? She shrugged it off, saying she'd handle the situation when it comes to it. Hearing those words felt like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just the betrayal of the cheating. It was the utter lack of respect for me or for the relationship we built over 5 years. She wasn't caught in a moment of weakness or guilt-ridden about what she was doing. This was deliberate, calculated, and worst of all, casual. Tina didn't stop there. She went on to share more that I hadn't known before. She said this wasn't the first time Hannah had cheated. Apparently, in one of her previous relationships, Hannah had done the same thing. Back then, she had framed it as a mistake, something she regretted deeply and swore she'd never do again. Tina admitted she believed her at the time, chalking it up to a rough patch in Hannah's life, but seeing her repeat the same pattern now made her realize it wasn't a one-time thing. It was a behavior. As Tina told me all this, I just felt messed up. I was furious, obviously, not just at Hannah, but at Tina too for keeping this from me. If she'd known about Hannah's history, why hadn't she warned me sooner? Why let me invest 5 years of my life in someone who had already shown she wasn't trustworthy? But as I looked at her sitting there visibly distressed and even tearing up at one point, it was hard to stay angry. Tina admitted she didn't come forward earlier because she didn't want to betray her friend. She thought Hannah would eventually do the right thing and tell me herself or end the affair, but when she saw how broken I was after everything came to light, she realized she couldn't stay silent anymore. She told me that as much as she cared about Hannah, she couldn't support what she was doing to me. It's hard to explain what that moment felt like. On one hand, I was relieved to finally have answers. The gut feeling I'd had, the late nights lying awake wondering if I was imagining things, it was all validated. But on the other hand, it hurt more than I expected. Knowing that Hannah could do something like this and feel no urgency to come clean made me question everything about our relationship. Tina also told me she'd be willing to back me up if I ever needed proof of what she'd seen. She apologized for not telling me sooner and said that she understood if I was upset with her. I told her I appreciated her honesty even if it came later than I would have liked. The fact that she risked her friendship with Hannah to tell me the truth said a lot about her character, and I couldn't ignore that. After our conversation, I went back to Mike's place and just sat in silence for a long time. Even though I already knew the truth, having it confirmed and hearing how deliberate and long-term it was hit me harder than I expected. I kept replaying moments from our relationship, trying to pinpoint when it all went wrong, seeing red flags I had ignored or rationalized at the time. Since my meeting with Tina, Hannah's attempts to contact me have become increasingly desperate. Somehow, she found out that Tina and I talked. Now her messages swing between anger at Tina for betraying her and pleading with me to give her a chance to explain. She still hasn't admitted to anything directly, which tells me all I need to know. She's more upset about being exposed than she is about the hurt she caused. The fallout has been wider than I expected. Several mutual friends have reached out, some with their own observations about Hannah's behavior. One friend mentioned noticing how Hannah's demeanor changed whenever I wasn't around, but they didn't feel it was their place to say anything at the time. While part of me wishes someone had spoken up sooner, I also understand why they didn't. It's not an easy thing to do. Hannah's mom has also been texting me. Her messages started with concern and quickly shifted to asking me to understand that everyone makes mistakes and that Hannah is going through a lot. I blocked her. As many of you pointed out, I don't owe anyone forgiveness or explanations, least of all, someone who is more focused on damage control than accountability. On the personal side, I've been reconnecting with old friends and rebuilding my social life. It's been heartening to rediscover those connections, especially with people who knew me before I met Hannah. One friend invited me to join their hiking group, and it's been a surprisingly therapeutic outlet. There's something grounding about being out in nature away from all the noise and drama. Looking ahead, I'm focusing on creating a routine that's just for me. I've started journaling, which helps organize my thoughts. The gym has also been a huge outlet. There's something about pushing yourself physically that quiets the mental chaos. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. The overwhelming advice I've received is to focus on healing and not rush any major decisions. I think that's exactly what I need to do. Thank you all again for the support, advice, and kindness. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in this. I'll update you again if anything significant happens. Update 3. Thank you again for all the support and advice. It's hard to put into words how much this community has helped me through these past few weeks. Even just knowing that there are people out there who understand and care has made such a difference. I wanted to share what's been going on since my last update. The biggest thing is that the full truth about Hannah's behavior finally came out. Apparently, Rachel had been flirting with one of her old co-workers. Well, that co-worker reached out again, and this time, the story got even messier. Turns out the guy Hannah was seeing is married. His wife recently found out about the affair, and she confronted Hannah. Apparently, it wasn't a calm discussion either. Hannah got an earful, and rightly so. I wasn't there for the confrontation, but hearing about it from other people was surreal. Part of me felt free, like this was proof I wasn't crazy or overreacting. Hannah wasn't just making one mistake or going through a rough patch. This was a pattern of deception and selfishness. I don't know exactly how things unfolded between Hannah and the guy she was seeing, but the coworker said it's caused chaos in his marriage. His wife is furious, and their relationship is falling apart. Hearing all of this gave me some closure, oddly enough. For weeks, I'd been questioning myself, wondering if I misinterpreted things or acted too quickly. Now I know I made the right decision. Hannah wasn't just disrespecting me. She was lying to everyone around her. It's sad more than anything. Since then, Hannah has been trying less to contact me directly, but she's still not completely gone. Her messages have shifted from anger and excuses to apologies. She sent one long message saying she's sorry for everything and wants to meet for one last conversation. She claims she's changed and learned from this experience. I didn't respond. At this point, what's the point? I've already spent too much time and energy trying to understand her choices. Her latest message mentioned that she knows I talked to her friend, Tina. She's furious about that, calling Tina a traitor for coming to me with the truth. Honestly, the fact that she's angrier at Tina for being honest and at herself for cheating just reinforces how self-centered she's been throughout all of this. Speaking of Tina, she and I talked again briefly after my last update. She apologized for not coming forward sooner and explained how hard it was for her to decide between loyalty to Hannah and doing the right thing. I told her I didn't hold it against her. It's a tough position to be in, and I appreciate her eventually choosing to tell me the truth even if it came late. In terms of my own life, I'm starting to feel like I'm turning a corner. My temporary apartment is feeling more like home now. I've been slowly decorating, picking out furniture, little things that make it mine. Pixel, my dog, has been a huge comfort. Watching him explore the new space and settle into his favorite spots has been a reminder of how life goes on even when it feels like everything is falling apart. Work has been another positive thing. I recently got offered a promotion, which caught me by surprise. Apparently, my focus on work these past few weeks hasn't gone unnoticed. The promotion would mean more responsibility, but also more flexibility with my schedule, which sounds like a win-win. I haven't made a final decision yet, but I'm leaning toward accepting it. It feels like a step forward, something I can do for myself without worrying about how it affects someone else. Therapy has been a lifesaver. I've continued going weekly, and it's helped me process everything without getting stuck in anger or regret. My therapist and I have started looking at patterns in my past relationships, not just with Hannah, but even before her. It's been eye-opening to realize how much I've ignored red flags or made excuses for people because I didn't want to deal with conflict. We're working on building healthier boundaries and recognizing what I need in a relationship moving forward. One thing that's been tough is dealing with memories. While packing up my stuff from the apartment, I came across old photos and mementos from my time with Hannah. It was like going down a rabbit hole of questioning everything. Were those happy moments real? Was she already cheating when we took that trip or celebrated that anniversary? It's exhausting, and I'm trying not to dwell on it too much. Some mutual friends have reached out since all of this happened. A few said they'd noticed things about Hannah over the years, but didn't want to interfere. I can't say I blame them. It's easy to look back and say, I should have known, but at the time, it's not always clear. Still, hearing their observations has been a mix of validating and frustrating. On the bright side, the friends who have stuck by me have been amazing. They've made an effort to include me in plans and remind me what it's like to have fun again. Hannah's mom also reached out a few times, but I blocked her now. Her messages went from trying to explain Hannah's behavior to asking me to forgive her. She said things like, everyone makes mistakes, and Hannah's going through a lot. I get that she's a mother trying to defend her child, but I'm done with excuses. Looking back on everything, it's hard to believe how much has changed in such a short time. When I wrote my first post, I was in shock, unsure of what to do or how to move forward. Now, while I'm still healing, I feel stronger and more grounded. The life I thought I was building with Hammer is gone, but I'm realizing that's okay. It wasn't the life I thought it was, and I'm better off without the lies and betrayal. To everyone who's been following this journey, thank you. Your advice, encouragement, and even the tough love have been invaluable. I've learned so much about myself and what I deserve in a relationship, and I feel like I'm finally on the path to something better. I don't know if I'll update again after this. Part of me feels like it's time to close this chapter and focus entirely on moving forward, but I wanted to share this update as a way to say thank you and to hopefully give some hope to anyone else going through something similar.